research to understand the human situation that is ignored by almost everybody. You will see the research, I do it myself, and it needs doing, into political manipulation, financial manipulation, manipulation of wars, engineered terrorist attacks, and all that. And that needs to be done. But the bottom line, surely, is to understand the very reality that we're experiencing, what we call life, what we call the world. What is it? It seems, on the face of it, to be very simple. It's a planet, it's a universe, and it's solid and stuff. It's all matter. But um, when you go deeper into it, actually not very deep, really, to start with, none of that is true. We don't live in a solid world. Quantum physics has shown that for a long time. We live in an illusory world that appears to be physical, but isn't. And we are experiencing the vastly advanced version of a video game, a simulation. And when you look at how people play video games, these virtual reality video games, I mean, what is happening? People put goggles on, they put headsets and earphones on, and they, often put gloves on. And what that is doing is simply hijacking, hacking into the way that we are decoding reality all the time. Because what is happening is that waveform information is being turned into electrical information by the five senses and then communicated to the brain. And the brain then decodes that. In fact, the whole genetic structure is involved, but the brain decodes that into the reality we think we're experiencing. This is what's happening. This simulation that I've been talking about for so long in the books is like a Wi-Fi situation. If you are in a place that has Wi-Fi, you can't see it, but it's in the atmosphere all around you, in the unseen. And the computer then decodes that information field into what we see on the screen. You talk about the internet. Well, you say the internet is graphics and pictures and moving pictures and words. Well, yes, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, it's just in the form of encoded information. And so what we're doing through what I call the biological computer is receiving and transmitting information, interacting with this field, what I call the cosmic internet. Think of it like a cosmic Wi-Fi field. And as we do so, we appear to be in a world, but we're actually only decoding it, just like the computer decodes information from the tower onto the screen in a very different form. So what video games are doing, virtual reality video games are doing, is hacking into that process. Through the gloves, they are hacking into the the feeling sense. From, of course, sight and sound, they're hacking into those um, five sense decoding processes of the body. And what they're doing is feeding them other information to override what they would normally be decoding in the world that we call real, bizarrely, really. And so suddenly, people can be taken, and they're getting more and more sophisticated now, these virtual reality games, into a world that is being decoded as if it's real. You'll see people reacting and stuff with the headsets on to nothing more than information being fed to their senses for them to decode into a fake reality. Well, here's a question. What if that's what we were doing? Decoding a fake reality? Which comes back to my question about, is the earth flat? Is there an earth? How would we know? How does the computer know what's real on its screen? How do we know? We're experiencing this reality which appears to be so solid but isn't. Well, there's a fake for a start. And we decode into a sense of reality whatever's in the information field, just as the computer does. You change the information, you change what's on the screen. And so, if we live in the equivalent of a computer simulation, and I strongly suggest we do, and indeed there are science projects, mainstream, well, open-minded mainstream studies around the world now into that question. Is this a simulation? Is this like a video game? As you know, some physicists have pointed out, the physics of our reality is the same basically as the physics of a computer game. And so the evidence is moving towards that all the time. So here's a question. He who controls the simulation controls the information that we're decoding, controls the sense of reality of who we are, where we are, and what the heck's going on. So, press enter. Oh, the Earth is round, mate. Look, I mean, you see it from space. Press enter. Well, look, everyone knows the Earth's flat. Look at it, you can see it from space. It is that simple. And it's only when we get into these deep questions about reality itself and the actual world that we're living in, or decoding to believe we live in. These are where the answers lie, because this is where the rabbit hole eventually leads. So these questions, these certainties that people have, so that when people like me come and question the certainties, oh, you're mad, everyone knows that. Well, how do you know that? Well, I told it at school, yeah? And where else? Well, tell it, the media say so, yeah? Scientists say so, yeah? Ever thought that that information that you're getting from all these people was coming from the same source? Indeed, from the same hoax. People who, in these various professions, say this is how it is, are caught in the hoax, are caught in the fake reality like everybody else. Most of them genuinely believe what they say, because to them it's real. But when you start to look at reality in a deeper way with an open mind, when you start to see the process of how we um, decode reality and experience reality, then these big questions start to demand answers. What is this place? Is this world that we are decoding real? Or is it click, click, enter? And if so, who is doing the click, click, enter? I mean, years ago, bloody lot of years ago now, in the 1950s, the London Planetarium opened. And I was living in Leicester. I was born in Leicester in the English Midlands. And we never had any money. We lived from week to week. But one day, like, what? My father came down on one of these bank holidays. Came down the stairs and he announced that we were going to London. What? This would have been about late 50s. So I'd have been 6, 7. And so it was great. Went on a steam train, loved it. Gets to London, never been to London before. And my father announces we're going to the London Planetarium. I didn't even know what it was. And my father had absolutely no interest in astronomy, never mentioned it, never talked about it, but now we're going to the London Planetarium. And where I'm going with this is this. I went in the middle of the day, little kid, sat down, lights went off, and suddenly the night sky was above me, looking to me every bit like the night sky. And something struck me that day. He was a little kid. And I've always kept this in my mind ever since. Is this real or is this just a movie, basically? And talking of the night sky, we look and we see these stars, and they're thousands, millions, billions of light years, all these fantastic distances that they talk about away from us. And yet, they only exist in the form that we appear to see them when the brain, just a few cubic centimeters of the brain, decode that information into the perceived reality. Because there is no time, and there actually is no space. It's all an illusion. And the only moment that exists is now. Always now. Never any other time. Now. And people say, well, what about the past? Okay. Where are you when you are thinking about the past? In the now. Where are you when you're thinking about the future? In the now. Everything happens in the now. Time is an illusion encoded into the fabric of the Wi-Fi, in effect, cosmic internet, which we are decoding into a perceived reality. And to get to the real core of what's going on in the world, beyond what's in the news, beyond all this other stuff, we need to start asking questions and understanding the nature of the world itself, the nature of the reality that we call the world. Because if we don't know what it is, and of course the vast majority don't, then what kind of position does that put us in relation to those in the shadows and beyond who do know what it is? It would make us, well, babes in arms doesn't even start to cut it. And to pursue these questions, you have to not care what other people think about you, because the system in all its forms and the servants of the system and the puppets of the system will come at you from the system's point of view, because it's all they know. But these questions are vital to be asked and to be pursued. Is the earth flat? How do we know, given the situation I've just described? Is there an earth? How do we know? Is this reality in any way real? Well, how do we know is one way of putting it. But from my research over 25 years, I'd say none of it is real. It's all a decoded illusion. So, who is encoding what we're decoding? Answer that, and the true nature of the human plight will come into focus. And it's much bigger than anything that you'll find within this reality if you take it to be real. I've got another question that kind of relates to this, because in the end, you know, it's all about frequency. And people like Nikola Tesla were talking about that to understand reality, you have to understand frequency. And this is a question from Mark Blanchflower. Is HAARP hitting the population with mind control frequencies? Well, that kind of continues what I've been saying. We operate, our brain operates, our genetic system operates within a particular frequency band. It decodes information within that band. So if you broadcast information technologically within that band, then the human brain genetic structure is going to decode it. You tune a radio to a frequency, you get that station. And if you broadcast anything on that frequency, then that station will, you will hear it on that station. It will reflect it. And so when you look at things like HAARP in Alaska, and that's only one of these technologies now. For those who haven't come across it, I think most people watching this video cast will know about HAARP. It broadcasts radio waves of great power into the ionosphere in the upper atmosphere. And it makes the ionosphere vibrate in sympathy with it. And then those radio waves come back to Earth in a much more empowered form than they left, because of this amplification, if you like. And there's many things that you can do with HAARP. You can change the weather. I mean, you look at the California drought. You look at the big drought before that in the southern states and even higher in the United States. You look at the extraordinary rain storms constantly that we've had in Britain in recent years, which have caused great floods. You look at the great flooding too in America. And when you look at weather experts or weather people. They say that what's causing this is that the jet streams that basically run from um, west to east uh, have been acting very strangely. They've been, uh, moving around, and what this has done is created this extreme weather, whether drought or rain. And one of the things that the people behind HARP, remember a guy called Bernard Eastland who wrote some of the patents for the HARP technology. What he said is that HARP can move the jet stream. It's a piece of cake because everything is energy. That flow of jet stream is energy. And if you introduce another energy within a frequency band that can impact upon that, you move the bloody thing. And if you know the consequences of moving it here or moving it there, then you can dictate the weather and create great extremes, get people off the land, and all the things that, are in this agenda. And of course, you can create earthquakes. Everything is a frequency. An earthquake is a frequency. If you broadcast energy and frequencies of sufficient power within the frequency of earthquakes, you will cause an earthquake, just as you'll change the weather if you do it in another way. So everything is frequency, everything is energy. So the mind manipulation potential of technology like HARP is massive, because all you've got to do is broadcast information on the frequency band of human brain thought activity, and suddenly people are getting perceptions and having thoughts and coming to conclusions and decisions and actions based on what they think is coming from them. But we're back to that question again. How do we know? How do we know where these thoughts are coming from? The key thing to understand human behavior is not even the conscious mind, which is like it's like the cinema screen. It's the subconscious mind from which it comes. And so subconscious is a bit of a misnomer, really, because everything is conscious. Our subconscious is only subconscious to our conscious mind, the one that we perceive the world with. But the subconscious is also conscious. Everything is conscious. And this subconscious mind is what is targeted by things like subliminal advertising. Subliminal means below threshold of the conscious mind. So things are being put in to the subconscious mind, which absorbs everything. I mean, the conscious mind perceives, it's hilarious, really, how much the conscious mind takes in of reality. Subconscious mind is a sponge, takes it all in. And so that's what they're targeting. HARP is targeting that. All these mind control techniques and technologies are targeting that, because you can get into the subconscious mind and then it filters through to the conscious mind. Oh, I've just had a thought. Hey, I'm going to do this. Hey, this is what I think. But where did that originate from? This is the level of the rabbit hole that we need to understand to appreciate, actually, like I say, the nature of the human plight. Because if we operate, and most of the vast majority of the alternative media does, if we operate in the realm only of the five senses, and we see things from the point of view of five sense solidity, if you like, and we see therefore what we need to do in terms of five sense solidity response, then we're never going to change anything. Because what we're doing is perceiving the movie screen and saying we need to change the movie screen. On the movie screen, you can't do it. You've got to change where it's coming from. And I've just very close to finishing a book. It will be out very, very early in the new year, which goes into all this and goes into ways that we can override the program and start to access true self as opposed to the fake self that we live our lives believing is us. And like I say, these are the areas we need to go into and need to understand to really start to get a grasp of what's happening, because it's far, far deeper than the vast, vast majority of the alternative media, even, never mind the mainstream, appreciate in terms of the scale of the conspiracy to which we are being subjected. Some more questions. Graham Coley, when will the population unite against a blatantly corrupt government? Andrew Cope, can you tell us who are the good guys in all this mayhem, and are we the good guys standing still with our jaws gaping and not knowing what to do for the best? Do you have any solutions for us? I go into that in this book. Scotty Dan, as more and more people are waking up, do you, in your opinion, think that we are capable of coming together and stopping the New World Order by ways of a revolution, or do you think it's too far gone already? From Serkan Karakaya, do you think 2016 will be, or what do you think it will hold for our fellow human beings? Well, all of those kind of come together. When will the population unite against a blatantly corrupt government? Well, when it chooses to. Because, we can talk about all the solutions in the world. We'll start an organization and someone will take the minutes. It won't change a thing. We can stockpile weapons and say we're going to fight the government. It won't change a thing. So we'll get blown away. We are in this situation because humanity is living a fake sense of self and a fake sense of the world while believing it to be real. What is happening is that the human conscious mind, via the subconscious programming going on all the time, has been focused in terms of its attention upon this reality, and this reality basically alone. It is precisely the same situation as someone with the headset on and the gloves who is playing a virtual reality game, and suddenly their entire reality is the game. Their focus of attention is the game. That outside of the game, when they've taken the headset off and everything, has gone. They are not part of that reality in their experience. The game has gone. Now, if you take that analogy and apply it to the reality that we're experiencing, which is just another vast video game which we are directly decoding through the biological computer body rather than doing it through being hacked in a video game, then we are doing the same, and thus we are in the same situation. We are experiencing this world as real, and thus our entire focus, most people anyway, is on the game. All people can see is the game. All people can talk about and pore over is the game. It's like someone sitting here with a headset on and the gloves and everything, and they're having a video game. And I'm saying to them, it's not real. It's not real. There's another reality outside the game. What? No, it's not. That's what the situation is. And this is why when people come into this world, into this reality, and in their various forms through what we call history, another illusion, they say, hey, this is not real. This is not what you think it is. People with headsets on, symbolically, go, you're mad, you're crazy, you're dangerous, you're a threat to society. And of course, the system, which is an expression of the game, jumps upon those people and tries to destroy them in any way they can, because they don't want people to realize that this is not real. Because when you focus consciousness in a very small area, then all you can perceive and all you can interact with is limitation. I mean, look at the world. All you can see, if you take this world to be real, if you take this world to be solid, if you take this world to be what we're told it is, all you can see is limitation. I can't. You can't do that, can't do that. No, laws of physics. But once you change your sense of reality to being consciousness beyond this reality, once that becomes your perspective, once that becomes your sense of self, I am infinite awareness having an experience, rather than I am my name, life story, and all the rest of it, race, religion, whatever, then what happens is your consciousness starts to expand and the frequency rises. And as the frequency rises, it could start to access more and more of potential awareness and insight beyond the game, because it's broken through, if you like, its frequency walls, its frequency barriers, which are in place all over the place, as I explain in this book. And then you start to get insight into your contribution, or your most effective contribution to what's going on. And then people need to decide, am I going to go with that insight, or am I going to run away and hide because the consequences of doing what this insight is telling me I don't like? You know, I was presenting television programs when all this started for me. I had an easy life, really. I mean, you know, if you've got the ability to present television programs, or you've got the confidence and stuff, it's a piece of cake. I mean, you know, people say, oh yeah, it's difficult presenting television programs. No, it's not really. It's all bollocks, really. And so I was all right. And then this change happened to me in 1989, 1990. And I knew what I needed to do, what my contribution would have to be. I just knew it. I couldn't walk away. And I've been doing it ever since. But so when people say, what can we do? Well, the answers lie in these realms of expanded awareness, which anyone can tap into. But to do it, people need to change their self-identity. Because while we self-identify with our name and all that goes with it, then that self-identity closes the channel. I am my name, I am my race, I am my country. I am. infinite awareness, having experiences those things, but I am not those things. I am infinite awareness. That connects you into something greater beyond the game. It's almost impossible to see the game within the game. What I call the various religious texts have talked about, in effect, being in this world but not of it. If you're in this world and of it, which is where most people are, because that's what they're manipulated to be from cradle to grave, then how can you see a game when you're in the game and all you can see is the game? How are you going to see through the game? But when you reevaluate your self-identity and go around in your life as I am infinite awareness, having an experience, then your consciousness awakens, expands, opens to its true self, what it should be. And suddenly the insights flow. Suddenly you start to see it. Suddenly it becomes so bloody blatantly obvious, it's almost funny. And the more that you work with that connection, the deeper and more powerful that connection becomes, the deeper the insights become. And if anyone, it's my view, if anyone thinks that the world can be changed or sorted out, and this control system brought to an end, excuse me, without that expansion of consciousness, forget it. Ain't gonna happen. Can't happen. Because when you're in the game and of the game always wins. The house always wins because the game is rigged. And when you are trying to change a game, you don't even understand what the game is and how it works. What chance have you got? None. So an expansion of awareness and a re-evaluation of who we are, and to live from that perspective of I am awareness, having an experience, I am not the experience. That's the revolution. Any other, quote, revolution without that, doomed from the start. Look at all the revolutions that this world has had from the perspective of overthrowing tyranny. And what follows is just another form of tyranny. Because you can't change, as the saying goes, you can't change something with the same level of consciousness that created it. You've got to go beyond it to change it for the better. To do that, we have to reevaluate who we are and where we are. And if we don't, it's going nowhere. It's as simple as that. People need to face it. And also, another thing, in terms of, what are solutions, is people need to start taking bloody responsibility. And instead of saying, what are they going to do about it, say, what am I going to do about it? What's my contribution to this? And once you make that decision that you want to make a contribution to turning this around, and you mean it, it's not just words, I mean it, the synchronicity of your life will start to offer direction and opportunities to make that contribution. It's the way it works. But you see, so many people are going, well, yeah, I'd like to do something, but I don't know what to do. No. You'd like to do something, but not that badly. Because if you did, and you meant it, and the intent was there, the energy of intent is extraordinarily powerful in changing reality. That intent, if meant rather than just spoken, would already have started to bring people into your life, situations into your life, opportunities into your life, synchronicity into your life. That would allow you to make that contribution in line with your intent, if it's true intent. And so solutions start here, because the world is us collectively, and what we do and how we respond to it. Like I say, it'd be nice to know what the world is to get a better fix on everything else. Serkan, what do you think 2016 will hold for us fellow human beings? Well, I've been saying for quite a while that I think 2016, 2017, 2018 are vital, vital years, and it is turning out that way, because there is an awakening going on. I'll tell you that clearly. More people are open to looking at the world in a different way now than ever before, by a street, and it's increasing all the time. But while this is going on, of course, the agenda's moving on. And it's moving on as fast as it can, because it's quite aware that there is an awakening going on. And in 2016, 2017, 2018, you know, the awakening is going to be looking into the face of the conspiracy, and vice versa. And so they're going to be very challenging times, and backbone, stiff, will be essential. But I'm very optimistic. Not that it's going to change overnight, it's not. But that we will continue to see more and more people exponentially grasping that actually there is a conspiracy going on, and the world's not like they thought it was. So I'm very optimistic that we are going to see this expansion of awareness of the world going on, and starting to affect more and more people within the system, in the dark suit structure, who are obviously compartmentalized from what they're really part of, who are going to start to see it. So the next 2016, 2017, 2018 are going to be, shall we say, very interesting years, because the conspiracy and the awakening are going to look each other in the eye. So it's going to be a challenging time, but I think a very interesting time, and I hope by the end of it, we'll be a lot further along the road by 2018 to this whole thing coming down. But I keep going back to this to understand how we should respond, and the best way to respond. We've got to understand the nature of the reality that we are dealing with, because that which we're challenging understands that reality and are manipulating it mercilessly to keep billions of people in a state of subservience through ignorance of their own reality and their own nature of who they are. So it's vital that we start, and I'm certainly going to be doing that. I'm doing that in this book and other ways, to start to move this whole thing into this area of what is reality and what is this world that we're experiencing, because that's where the key to what we call solutions actually lies. Anything else is just responding to the game. Yeah, I mean, here's one. I mean, this Craig Crowder. How much do you get paid by Co-Intel? I suppose he's talking about intelligence agencies, isn't he? You know, people can get caught in this game in so many ways. It's unbelievable. And the ones most caught in it are often those who think they've sussed the game. We're always trying to understand more and more about the game, and you can get caught in many and various ways, because there's many ways the game sets traps all over the place. But, you know, I've had this. What happens is, you stand up and take the consequences for it of communicating information, exposing these organizations and what they're doing. And then people like that say, you're part of it. You only do it. Well, why am I doing it? Why am I exposing this stuff? Oh, I spent 25 years exposing this stuff. What for intelligence agencies? I mean, are you what are you on? What are you talking about? And then there's this other lovely one I have. I've had it so many times. If you were telling the truth, you'd be dead. All right. So are you telling the truth? Yeah, I'm telling the truth. So why are you still alive then? It's extraordinary the way people respond to things. The idea, I mean, is there a more it's all over, put the handcuffs on, put the chains on my feet attitude than if you speak the truth, they'll kill you? Well, maybe, just maybe, there are other forces at work. Yeah? How about that for a concept? There are other forces at work who are seeking to work through humanity to bring an end to all this stuff. Or maybe they don't want certain people just to be taken out. What's the point in coming into this world if you start to speak truth and people can go bang bang and you're gone? What's the point? Going down there, open your mouth and bloody shoot you. You know, we have far more power than that which is manipulating and controlling us. The power it's using to do that is the power that we're giving them all the time, giving our power away. That's a form of giving your power away. Yeah, well, he's exposing it. No, he's one of them. He is. Unbelievable. I mean, oh, dear. We're going to talk about expanded consciousness. I think I mentioned it earlier. And there's a question here about remote viewing. What's my views on remote viewing? Well, we're kind of back to, again, reality. You know, I've met a lot of these remote viewers when I traveled America an enormous amount in the 1990s and early 2000s. And it's the ability, in effect, to project your point of attention. You know, I have this computer camera thing in front of me, and I can look at it, and that's my point of attention. I can expand my point of attention a bit more, and I can see the room and things in it. But that's just my point of attention now. If I can go into other states of awareness, then you can project your point of attention somewhere else. Because that's what we are. We're awareness. We're not the body. That's the vehicle to experience this world. We are awareness. And so our awareness can be here, or our awareness can be somewhere else. And what genuine psychics are doing is basically tuning their awareness to another reality, and through that connection bringing information into this reality from another reality. That's what they're doing. It's all frequency. And if you can project your point of attention somewhere else, you can remote view that place. That's how it all works. And the military have been doing this for decades and decades. I remember speaking at an expo in San Francisco. When would it be? Be in the 1990s. And a lady came up to me and she said her husband, who died, quite a young lady, her husband, she said, had been recruited into the psychological assassination squad of the US military. And the story she told me was that um, they give them various tests when they get into the military because they're looking for certain gifts, certain abilities. And if you have those abilities, then you get moved into the area that suits your ability. And they, from the testing of this lady's husband, um, came to the conclusion that his, if you like, psychic gifts or power of psyche would suit the psychological assassination squad. And what she said they did, and this is years and years and years ago, like I say, well back in the 1990s, must have been about 96, 97, something like that. They sit around a table, all these people, and they would take a picture of the person they were going to assassinate, and they would focus on it, and they'd all focus on his heart stopping. Now, how does your heart work? Electricity. And by focusing on that image, they were making a connection, a frequency connection through that focus with the guy and with his heart. And then they would just stop it from a distance. This is what they're doing because on the inside of the military, they absolutely understand the way reality works. And they are using it against the population all the time while telling the population through mainstream science, oh, none of that's possible, it's mumbo jumbo and all that. And once again, we're back to frequency. If you can tune into the person's heart with enough power, then you can stop it. If you can tune into a person or situation, you can remote view what is happening in that situation. It's yet again this this position we have of mainstream science telling people what can't be done, and most of them believing it because that's all they know. While those ultimately behind mainstream science are doing every day what their mainstream science establishment is telling people can't be done. What can you do? But that's the way we are. Another question from Robert. Why are you all of a sudden pro-Zionist? Huh? I can't speak. What? On what evidence, on what basis, I'd like to know. Because I've been challenging Zionism, the Rothschild creation of Zionism, for even before I had my experience and got into this 25 years ago. I was challenging that in the Green Party. I was challenging that as an individual because I think Zionism, not talking about Jewish people, talking about Zionism, the political movement created by the Rothschilds for their own ends, is one of the greatest destructive forces on planet Earth. And in so many ways, and some of them obvious, like conflicts in the Middle East, like the slaughter of Palestinians and the stealing of their land, and others less obvious, like the infiltration of American politics and British politics and European Union politics and all that, United Nations politics. So the idea that I am suddenly pro-Zionist has left me completely and utterly bewildered because nothing could be further from the truth. One other group of questions is about Russia, and there's one from Joe Magnuson. Is Putin really an independent leader or a wolf in sheep's clothing that they use as part of the world order game? From CM Thorboxer. What are your thoughts on Russia fighting ISIS? Daniel Thompson, do you think World War III could start with all the chaos? And Sammy Lee, is Russia, or are Russia and China the good guys? Well, it's fascinating to me how it's unfolding in Syria, because I've been talking since the 1990s about the plan for a third world war involving the West against Russia, China. And it doesn't mean it will happen. I mean, that's another point, you see. When people say to me, I see they're doing what you said they'd do, I don't really take that as a compliment, to be honest, because the idea of putting this information out is to stop it happening, not to stand there saying, see, told you. And that's what, when I talked earlier about 2016, 2017, 2018, that's the next stage of this, when we as an awakening, becoming an aware humanity of the nature of what's going on, at least some of it, starts to impact upon it and stops it happening. That's the next stage. That's what we need to do through these years that we're talking about. But up to now, it is unfolding as they planned, not in every detail. I mean, they wanted to be through Syria and onto the next conquest a long time ago. And Assad has held on, and it's thrown a spanner in the works. And that's a good thing, because if that hadn't happened, they'd have been further down their agenda, ticking off countries. But there are many levels to this. First of all, anyone who is head of Russia is connected to the game. End of story. But there are different levels of awareness, different levels of knowledge of the game, different areas of the web that you have access to. So not everybody knows everything that's going on. I mean, the spider at the center of the web is running the show. How many people further out from the spider actually know, and most politicians are way out from the spider, is quite another thing. But when you look at it on, if you like, face value, I think that Putin, from a Russian interest point of view, further down, could see where this was going. He could see very clearly that ISIS was a creation of the West, particularly the United States and Israel, and that this war against ISIS was a fallacy. It was a hoax. There was nothing going on. All that was happening is ISIS were being allowed to expand and expand because the United States, Britain, and all this crowd of NATO were using the front of ISIS to remove Assad. You see how many times that they've tried to get support for directly bombing Assad, and they couldn't get it. So then they went down the road of, well, we can't bomb him direct because, we can't get support. So what we'll do is we'll say we're bombing ISIS, and we'll bomb Syrian targets. And that's what basically they've done. But they've not attacked ISIS in a way that was going to bring an end to them. Quite the opposite. They don't want that. And with Russia's interests in Syria, and also Putin will know what the scenario is once Syria's taken over, if that's what happened. He's moved in and basically sought to embarrass them and in a way expose the game by setting out to bring an end to this whole ISIS horror. But again, deeper in the web, higher in the pyramid, however you want to look at it, you now have a situation where Iran, Russia, and China are together behind Assad, and the rest are against Assad. And it's in the Middle East that this Third World War was always going to be triggered. Been planned a long time. The question is, will it happen? Or will this change that's taking place, this greater awareness of the situation that's taking place, stop that happening? That's the idea. And it was a great encouragement to me when Obama and Cameron, the British Prime Minister, tried to get through their parliaments and tried to get public support for directly bombing Assad. And they couldn't get it a few years ago now. And they've been reeling from that ever since. Because that was a seed change. And all we can do is keep banging out information that puts a new, different light upon current events. The more you do it, the more people see it, and the more people go, hold on a minute, this makes sense. This is what I've been doing for 25 years, just banging it out, banging it out, banging it out, banging it out. And it has an effect, and we can all do it. We all have access to the internet, or at least for now. So we can all take this information, whether it's mine or someone else's, and just bang it out to as many people as possible. You know, there'll be people sitting at home saying, what can I do? There's a computer there. There's information about what's going on in the world. Put the two together, get it out to as many people as you can. That, you know, instead of sitting around thinking, what can we do? Do what can be done on that level alone. And it's this circulation of information that is making the change, because, going back to where we started, perception is everything. And perception comes from input. It can be input from expanded awareness. It can be input from newspapers. It can be input from the internet. And from that input of information, from wherever the sources are, people come to perceptions. And from those perceptions, they make decisions on what they do and don't do, what they support and won't support. Perception is everything. And perception comes from information. So what can I do? What can we do?